Okay, let's talk about the most powerful computer on the planet. Now, if you're picturing some secret government bunker, you're thinking way too small. By 2045, the single most powerful supercomputer won't be in a building at all. It's going to be all around you, hiding in plain sight, mostly in your neighbor's parked car. How on earth is that possible? Well, we're going to run the numbers, and they are absolutely wild. Let's get into it.
Here's the headline number: 85,000 ZettaFLOPS. That's the amount of computing power we expect a single large city to have in just a couple of decades. Now, a ZettaFlop is a number with 21 zeros after it. It's a billion trillion calculations every single second. Honestly, a number that big is basically meaningless on its own, so we need some context.
And here is that context. That citywide network, it's going to be 425 times more powerful than the most powerful, most ridiculously expensive centralized supercomputer we can even imagine building in that same time frame. And, get this, over 90% of that power, it comes from cars, just sitting there, parked.
So how in the world do we get to a number that massive? That's what we're here to break down. First, we're going to look at why the old way of building supercomputers is hitting a wall. Then we'll actually do the math layer by layer to build up our city-sized computer. After that, we'll see what this power means for you personally. And finally, we'll explain why this isn't just some sci-fi fantasy, it's pretty much inevitable.
All right, first things first, let's talk about the traditional approach, building one giant, centralized computer to do everything. Let's imagine the absolute peak of this idea, a theoretical machine we'll call the world sim.
So this world sim would be an absolute beast. We're talking 200 ZettaFlops of raw horsepower. But look at the price tag. It would cost $60 billion just to build it. That's more than the entire GDP of a country like Luxembourg. And to power it, it would suck down 2 gigawatts of electricity, constantly. You'd need 2 dedicated nuclear power plants just to keep the lights on, running up an electric bill of $2 to $3 billion a year. But here's the real killer, the fatal flaw. Even with all that money and power, it's still too slow. Not the processing, the physics, the speed of light. The delay, the latency in sending a signal to the supercomputer and getting it back would be too long for a seamless, immersive virtual reality. It's the kind of delay that makes you feel queasy. So the world sim is a monster, but it can't give us the real-time world we want.
Okay, so if one giant brain in a box can't do the job, what's the solution? Well, it's not one brain, it's an entire city of them. A distributed network made of 4 distinct layers, all working together. So let's roll up our sleeves and actually run the numbers to see how we get to that insane 85,000 ZettaFlops figure.
Right, this is the core of it. Let's build this thing. Layer 1, vehicles, autonomous cars. In our future megacity, there are about 20 million of them. And when a car is parked or charging, its powerful onboard computer is basically idle. So what if we could borrow just a little bit of that power? Each car effectively becomes a node in a massive supercomputer. So you take 20 million cars, multiply that by their available compute, and you get 80,000 ZettaFlops. Yeah, just from parked cars. Next up, androids. About 50 million of them, each contributing a little bit. That adds another 5,000 ZettaFlops to our total. Then you have our AR and VR headsets, 20 million of them, giving us 15 ZettaFlops of compute right where it's needed most, literally in front of our eyeballs. And finally, you have the city's infrastructure, the compute embedded in buildings, roads, even furniture that chips in another 17 ZettaFlops.
And there you have it. That's how you get to a city-scale supercomputer. It's not one thing. You take the absolutely massive, untapped power of parked cars, you add the collective processing of androids and personal headsets, and you weave in the compute from the smart infrastructure itself. And the grand total is right around 85,000 ZettaFlops.
So now that we've built our distributed city computer, how does it really stack up against that old-school centralized world sim? Let's put them side by side. This is where it gets really stark.
I mean, just look at this. It's not even a contest. On pure compute, it's 200 ZettaFlops versus 85,000. For cost, it's $60 billion plus upkeep versus a marginal cost of basically zero. Why? Because we're just using the idle capacity of devices that people and companies have already bought for other reasons. Our city network also uses less than half the power, and crucially, the latency is low enough for truly believable, real-time immersive experiences. It wins on every single metric.
Let me put a fine point on this. The most powerful, most expensive, centralized supercomputer we can possibly imagine building is less than 0.25% as powerful as the distributed network that's just there in the city. It's not in the same league. It's not even playing the same game. Okay, these are astronomical numbers, right? But who cares?
What does this actually mean for you, for a person living inside this city-sized computer? How does this change anything?
Let's make it personal. You take the total 85,000 ZettaFlops and you divide it by the 20 million people in the city. That comes out to 5.8 exaflops of dedicated computing power for every single person. That is enough compute to generate a completely photorealistic, persistent virtual world populated by thousands of fully autonomous AI characters, all for you. It's your own personal matrix running in real time. To put that in perspective, think about the absolute best, most high-end gaming PC you could possibly buy in 2025. By 2045, the slice of the city's compute available to you will be 19 million times more powerful than that PC. This isn't just a simple upgrade. It's a fundamental change in what personal computing even is.
Now, this whole idea might sound like crazy science fiction, but the argument here is that this future isn't just a possibility, it's basically inevitable. And the reasons for that aren't based on wishful thinking. They're rooted in the hard laws of physics and economics.
Look, it really boils down to three main reasons why this has to be the future. First, heat. You literally couldn't build a centralized computer with 85,000 ZettaFlops of power. The heat density would be so high it would just melt itself. Second, physics. The speed of light isn't getting any faster. For real-time immersion, you need the computer to be physically close to you. And third, maybe most important, is economics. Why would anyone spend $60 billion building a new machine when you can just tap into the immense power of devices that people already own? It just makes sense.
And to be clear, this isn't based on some magical, futuristic technology. All of these projections are based on the hardware we have today and then projecting a pretty conservative 8.5 times efficiency gain over the next 20 years. That's well within the established roadmaps for things like photonic computing and 3D chip stacking. This is just a logical extension of where things are already going.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The future of computing, at least for the things that matter most to us, our real-time experiences, isn't going to be found in a giant centralized building. It's going to be the city itself. This isn't really a choice we're making. It's the natural outcome of technology, physics, and economics all pointing in the same direction. The future of computing is a parking lot that thinks.